The world as we know it is undergoing a big cultural change, and it's mainly centered around free speech, which is pretty funny given that we have more access to other people than we ever have through the internet. So I want to show you the news that just came out from Meta, from Mark Zuckerberg himself. Zuck himself just put out a huge announcement pertaining to censorship and free speech and how they're going to be making some massive changes at Meta, which is very important, of course, for the world, right? There's over 3 billion users of Meta's products, but also important for businesses, right? And startups, which at Chemilab, my company, that's all we talk about is startups and Shopify startups in particular. So Toby Lutke here, the Shopify CEO, just posted this. He said huge and important change, which I agree. And, Meta is a huge way that we grow our businesses, Meta ads in particular. So I'm excited to see how this will affect ads, but overall, just in general, how will it will affect social media as a whole. So let's take a look at this announcement and let's talk about it.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also
Someone was knocking on my door.
a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US.
I see. So, yeah, this is a big thing that X has done that has been actually pretty interesting from a lot of different points of view, right? From an entertainment point of view, also, just from a fact checking, I guess, and ultimately a lot of people post misinformation. So it's good to have some sort of feedback loop there with community notes. And I would love to see that on Instagram and Facebook. That's pretty interesting. Honestly, Meta is notorious for copying some of the best features of other companies in the social media game. So I'm not too surprised that they're doing this, but I'm excited to see how it plays out.
After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse.
I wonder if that's going to affect advertising because, of course, with advertising, they do have very strict restrictions, although there's always ways to get around it. Same with organic content that you post just on your feed. But if they simplify their restrictions, this may enable even more businesses to start advertising and more businesses to start posting their content as well on social media. You don't need to pay for advertising in order to reach a lot of people if you're a business these days. But a lot of businesses and people, again, do get restricted and shadow banned, or, they just get their posts disabled or taken down for things that honestly shouldn't be taken down, but maybe slightly break some of Meta's policies in terms of services. So that's a pretty interesting change.
What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content.
Sorry if you can hear.
For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed. So we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now.
When he says they stop recommending these posts, to me, that's almost confirmation that shadow banning is a real thing. If they are preventing a piece of content to get full, a normal amount of reach, then that's basically what people refer to as a shadow ban, and that is censorship. So that's very interesting. They're going to be more lenient on that. This is all great things, but like you said, it is a trade-off. We're definitely going to see a bit of chaos probably at first through some of these changes, but hopefully over time it will lead to a lot of good. I do believe it will, and I actually respect Zuck a lot these days for just having this level of leadership despite how big his company has become. Because of course Elon Musk has been leading the charge on X, but X is a much smaller company, right? Like Meta is huge, like literally multiple trillions of dollars, I believe, with a ridiculous amount of employees. So this is not an easy move to make on his part, I'm sure.
And we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive. Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams.
Interesting. So that's not necessarily because there's a bias in California, but because there will be a perceived bias if everything is centered around California. Wow, this is actually a very interesting concept. This is really the concept of decentralization. So, man, that's a big concept, obviously, in crypto, and that's kind of the whole idea behind Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So, very interesting to see this sort of becoming a thing now at these massive companies like Meta. So, they're decentralizing where these decisions are being made, which gives a perception of reduced bias, but it probably also does result in less bias. Really cool.
Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression.
That's a really good point.
And I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
Wow. Very, very interesting news. Great points. I'm glad that he touched on the fact that, they're still going to be taking down illegal things. It's not, just the Wild West out here. I'm sure that's probably a big objection that some people will have, especially people on the far left of the spectrum, the political spectrum, which honestly is such BS, man. Like, you can get great ideas from both sides of the spectrum, any side of the spectrum. So, yeah, I'm actually pretty excited about this. I think this is a great move on his part. I think it's a brilliant business move as well. Just aligning the company with the administration, the upcoming administration, is a really, really smart move on his part. But I think he does make a great point about the previous administration and just in general, the global sentiment around censorship has been definitely supported by the previous administration and therefore has emboldened the rest of the world to go more into censorship, which only really benefits a certain amount of people, and definitely gets rid of a lot of people's voices. So that's pretty cool. We'll see how it all pans out. Let me know what you think on this. I mean, I'm always very interested to know your thoughts. I'm very interested to see also how this will play out in the world of advertising on Meta, since it's one of the most powerful ways to grow a business these days. And now it does sound like there's going to be a wider spectrum of businesses that can advertise, or maybe new kinds of ads that you can run now that you couldn't before. So this is pretty unforeseen. I think if you would have asked me 4 years ago if something like this would happen, I would actually probably say the opposite, right? That there would be more restrictions, less things that you can say. So I think this is a good move. Of course, it will require some patience. It will require some tolerance on every side of the spectrum, right? There's going to be some crazy unhinged stuff, just like on X, right? There's a lot of unhinged stuff, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad platform. In fact, for me, I've been using X more than ever, despite there being more unhinged content. There always has been, right? It's just maybe now, I guess, there's less moderation, or the moderation is a little more loose, but it's a good thing in a lot of ways. Of course, there's a bit of bad as well, like Zuck mentioned too. It's a trade-off. But ultimately, let me know what you think. Even if you disagree, I want to know your opinion. Shout out to Toby Letke, of course, also kind of showing where he stands on this issue and showing great leadership at Shopify. Shout out to Shopify, arming the rebels. Love that saying. But yeah, let me know what you think. And yeah, see you guys soon. Peace.